until recently, the scientific community all but universally agreed that genetic changes were the product of accidental mutations, caused by errors that were only random and always rare. Yet in Jumping in the Gene Pool, Dr. Lamb explores how evolution has sped up this process. Instead of an organism relying purely on luck to react on a genetic level, we are discovering new ways our genes learn to improvise. Even the sun can cause mutation, not just with skin cancer, but on a global scale. But wouldn't evolution lean towards a way in which an organism can react faster to its environmental changes in order to survive and reproduce? This is where the chapter's namesake comes in, jumping genes or transposons. When an organism is stressed, these genes can cut and paste themselves throughout the genome, effectively changing the sequence of the DNA, sometimes turning genes on and sometimes turning genes off. Come on! This new discovery was found by Barbara McClintock, some of which would say is the Emily Dickinson of genetics. Most of her research was focused on the genetics of corn. Yes, corn. When she first discovered her jumping gene, she faced little to no recognition or encouragement, if not scorn. Since then, however, it has been accepted by many more of the scientific community. They fascinate scientists due to their amazing capabilities. This can even be seen in its variety of names from Gypsy, Matanga, Swahili for Wanderer, Castaway, Evel Knievel, and Mariner. There's even a jumping gene named Jordan by Washington University researchers after Michael Jordan's amazing leaping ability.
Catch you on the flippity flip.
Yet their endless capability is not the only way jumping genes amaze the scientific community. Their origin is also something that fascinates scientists today. It has been discovered that at least 8% of the human genome is composed of viruses, or to be specific, retroviruses. Retroviruses have an enzyme called reverse transcriptase that gives them the unique property of transcribing their RNA into DNA after entering a cell. When this type of virus enters the germline of an organism and writes itself into the DNA of the offspring, this should have disastrous effects, shouldn't it? But if the virus doesn't hurt or even helps the offspring, it should increase its chance to survive and make its way into the gene pool permanently. At that point, it's pretty hard to distinguish between where the virus ends and our DNA begins. So those jumping genes, they might as well have descended from viruses. The second type of jumping gene, which copy and paste instead of cut and paste, look a lot like retroviruses, and their names is even more identical, retrotransposons. So that dream of humans, bacteria, and viruses living all together harmoniously, it may already be taking place today.
One-third of American children are obese, and of those, 60% show at least one major risk for heart disease. It is not only a result of a bad diet or inherited slow metabolism, but also a result of mom's eating habits during pregnancy. It was previously thought that the DNA of a fetus was set and did not change. However, epigenetics could change that. Epigenetics is the study of changes in an organism caused by modification of gene expression rather than alteration of genetic code itself. For example, if a pregnant mother eats food that is low in nutrition and bad for the body, the fetus will think it is being born into an environment in which it will struggle to get essential nutrients, so it develops a thrifty metabolism, which allows it to store energy better. But the child is being born into an environment containing plenty of nutrients, causing the child to store more fat than needed. This proves that the fetus can change its genetic makeup after fertilization. This was further demonstrated through an experiment performed at Duke University in 2003. A group of mice were specifically bred to have an agouti gene, which causes them to be yellow and obese. Obviously, when two of these mice were bred together, more agouti mice were born. Except when these mice were given prenatal vitamin supplements, the fat yellow mice then gave birth to skinny brown mice. This was due to DNA methylation, the process of genetic suppression, which occurred because the compounds in the vitamin supplement containing methyl donors form methyl groups. These become genetic stop signs that turn off the agouti gene, The fetus thinks it's being born into an environment with plenty of nutrition, creating the perfect metabolism for its actual environment. In conclusion, child obesity starts before they are even born, and isn't only the fault of a child's bad eating habits.
Chapter 8, That's Life, Why You and Your iPod Must Die. The Hayflick limit is a limit on cellular reproduction. This means that cells in the human body can only divide 52 to 60 times before they up and quit. But why would evolution give cells an expiration date? Well, if a cell can only reproduce a certain number of times, it prevents uncontrollable reproduction of cancer cells. Although now, some cancer makes telomerase so it can reproduce uncontrollably anyways. Those cancer cells and stem cells are the only ones who defy this limit. The negative effect of this limit is that aging occurs. This isn't the only reason for aging, however, because it doesn't explain the correlation between size and life expectancy. This is explained by the fact that smaller animals have more potential predators, so they need to reproduce faster if they want to reproduce before they die. Additionally, if we lived forever, we would never evolve, meaning that we would be a bunch of hairy, immortal gorillas. On the idea of gorillas, childbirth in humans is riskier, longer, and certainly seems more painful than it is of any of our genetic cousins, which is a very bad trait to have, considering reproduction is the most important part of evolution. This causes scientists to wonder why we have adopted these traits and not our primate neighbors. The idea of the Savannah Hypothesis is a widely accepted theory that explains human bipedal evolution. It summed it up with the need to see more and move faster in the savannah, so we began walking on 2 feet. We needed hunting tools, so we developed bigger brains, and it was hot, so we lost our hair to stay cool. This hypothesis was unchallenged for years, but recently, a Welsh author who became skeptical of this theory and why, if evolution focused on reproduction, the theory only focused on males. Her name was Elaine Morgan, and she wrote a book in 1972 called The Descent of Women that questioned the entire theory. While doing her research, she came across a theory created by Alistair Hardy. Hardy had suggested a different theory in which he believed a group of apes had been isolated on a large island around what is now Ethiopia and adapted to the water. The theory explained why, like many other aquatic animals, we lost our fur, developed prominent noses and downward-facing nostrils, why we began to walk on 2 feet, and why our fat is attached to our skin. We lost our fur to move better through the water and developed downward-facing noses, which allowed us to dive. We walked on 2 feet so we could go deeper while keeping our heads above the water. The water also supported the upper body, making it easier to stand on 2 feet. Fat attached to the skin kept babies warm and kept them afloat. Additionally, water makes the birthing process easier. Only 5% of women who started with a water birth asked for an epidural compared to 66% who gave birth the traditional way, which explains how our ancestors were able to survive with such a difficult reproduction process.